Do you have that love-hate relationship with your favorite NFL team? I know. Tell me about it. It's rough. No, don't look at me. Don't look at me anymore. 13 seconds? Really? 13 seconds that you couldn't give me. You know, I stick up for you, I defend you, I break tables for you, and this is what you give me? Nothing but pain and heartache, man? I can't do this relationship anymore. It's over, man. It's over. I'm not wearing your trash rags anymore. We're done. I'm sorry. I said some things I didn't mean, okay? I took it out on you. I was frustrated. God, look at you. You're just gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, I don't really do that. I don't. Look at you. Gorgeous.
Yeah. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What's going on, Headliner Nation? Chris Chow's back in for the Fantasy Headliners. Hope everybody is doing well. You know, it's rough, man, with your favorite team. We got to break them down. And you know what? I promise to be as objective as possible. I will not let my homership take over. And we do got the Buffalo Bills offseason workbook, man. I mean, we see a lot of transactions happening right now as we speak. So let's dive in and waste no time for the Buffalo Bills offseason workbook. So when we start talking about my Buffalo Bills, man, and where they need to go, where they have gone, I mean, they still are considered one of the best teams in the entire NFL. And simply put, his name is Josh Mother effing Allen. You know who he is. And I mean, they had a fabulous year, okay? Year over year, AFC Championship. This year, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs 42-36 in overtime, if you can believe it. That game was unbelievable. I mean, it was like pain and suffering, glorious joy, and then back to pain and suffering again, just in one game within the last like 10 minutes of that contest. But I mean, the Bills played very good, basically the entire season. We're going to talk about the playoffs more than anything because the season, they did see ups and downs. I mean, losing to the Jaguars, teams like that where they should have won, likely would have gotten home field advantage if they had have won those contests, but I mean, it didn't happen. The perfect game versus New England, I mean, come on, no punts, no fumbles, no picks. This is how good this team is. 11-6, first overall in the AFC East, and again, going into 2022, they will be a Super Bowl favorite contender once again in the NFL. I mean, okay, and the one thing before we dive into the stats, we all know the Bills would have beat the Rams in that Super Bowl. Let's not kid ourselves. The Bills were a great team. Even Kansas City, I think, would have fared a little bit better than what the Bengals did. But nevertheless, that's in the past. We'll move on. And if we look back at what the Bills were, third in points, fifth in total yards, pass yards was ninth, rush yards was sixth. So we know the Buffalo Bills and how they operate on offense. They didn't utilize that run game as much as I would have wanted. But I get it. You got a guy like Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. They aren't your prototypical elite running backs in the NFL. So they kind of, defaulted to the pass game more often than not. Now Brian Daboll is no longer the OC. He is the head coach of the New York Giants. So, I mean, defensively, we start moving on. The Bills were first in three categories, if you can believe it. I still don't understand how they lost that game. First in points, yards, pass yards, 13th in run defense. And, I mean, that's been the Achilles heel for the Buffalo Bills for quite some time. And you got to think, they did this on defense without Trey White for the latter part of the season. So, you got to understand that the Bills will be at a situation where they're going to have to shore up this defense a little bit because we could see free agents coming, and we'll get into that as we get to the workbook. But for who were the big dogs this season, man, this past season, we know Josh Allen, my man Josh, he was just unreal. And I've been saying it ever since he came into this league. Everyone said, Josh Allen was inaccurate passer. He can improve. He's not going to be anything good. I told everybody, I said, listen, wait and see. And when it comes to player evaluating, go check us out on Headliner U. This is where we do all our scouting reports. But I mean, when you talk about a player like Josh Allen, the first thing you look at is uncoachable skill set that he does possess. And it is that rocket of an arm. It is his ability, the big body that he is, his ability to escape the pocket and run and not take massive hits because he's built like a linebacker. Stuff like that you cannot coach. The accuracy, yes, is it an outlier to say that it can be coached up? Josh Allen worked with the right people to get that part of his game completely changed and altered based on his throwing motion, and now we see what he did. I mean, accuracy percentage-wise has been increasing year over year since he's been in the NFL. This year, 4,400 yards plus, 36 TDs. The interceptions did increase a little bit, and we did see that because Josh was trying to be a little bit more Superman-esque in the pass game from time to time. 763 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns added on top of that. He is, I mean, now people talking, is he the best quarterback in the entire NFL? And I mean, he's top 3 for me, no question about it. And I think that he is a phenomenal talent and, the savior to Buffalo, if we can say that right there, right? His rise to fame, it's going to continue. Devin Singletary, he was your leading back. They started picking up and using him as the year went on. 188, 870, and 7 rushing touchdowns. He was okay, but my gripe the entire offseason prior was getting this team a real true 3-down running back that can catch. It will change everything in this offense. Believe me, if they can institute a lot more run games, that play action pass will start working a little bit more. And could you imagine Josh Allen with a play action pass and RPO threat? Good Lord, get ready for that, man. Stephon Diggs, your top wide receiver, 103, 12, 25, and 10 touchdowns. Even though it kind of felt like an off year for Diggs, I mean, he still balled out, still is the number 1 target. Best friend to Josh Allen, you gotta love it. Cole Beasley, he added 82 for 693 and 1 score. He was decent and serviceable. His play kind of seemed to drop off from the season prior, and simply because that is of Dawson Knox and his of elevation in this offense. 49, 587, and 9 touchdown receptions. He was a killer in the red zone, a common theme for Josh Allen to look at. Gabe Davis on the rise as well. I mean, when we talk about Gabe, I have been a huge supporter of Gabe Davis. I think this is the year. You do Stephon Diggs, you do Gabe Davis, 1 and 2, and then you round it out with whoever you do. I don't foresee certain guys that coming back, but we'll talk about that as we get through. I mean, in that Kansas City game, 8 receptions for 201 and 4 touchdowns. This is the kind of productivity you can expect simply because, I mean, Diggs takes so much pressure off of the other receivers in this pass game. Yes, you do need a slot weapon, and I don't know if Dawson Knox is necessarily going to be that prototypical guy that you want to use outside of the red zone and specialty plays, but I mean, Isaiah McKenzie, he is one that I loved. I think his role, when they did expand and evolve his role, he was a machine on those jet sweeps. That one contest, I believe it was versus New England, he was just a machine on that field. So for me, I like this offense, how it's put together, but there's going to be some tough questions to answer and say, how do they move forward? But when it comes to the offseason books and the money, they now, with a couple releases, they sit above the salary cap. $2.544 million in free space right now, and the top free agents to covet. Let's dive in, man. It's Jerry Hughes, 33 years old. So again, this one's interesting. He's said that he wants to come back. His productivity has declined as he has aged, and his market value to me, $2.5 to $3 million on a hometown discount. I don't foresee the Bills, shipping out Brinks trucks of money to him because, the writing's on the wall. Maybe 1-2 years left as a specialty rusher, kind of like we saw from Dwight Freeney back in the day, but that's all I see for Hughes. Mario Addison, 34 years old. He is aging as well. He was the leading sack getter on this defense this past season. I really wonder if they're going to bring him back and entertain that as well, but it's going to be one or the other in my opinion, either Hughes or Addison. I'd be shocked to see them both return. $4.5 to $5 million for Addison. Same goes for Vernon Butler. They tried the Carolina Panthers, bring all the players they liked, McDermott and Bean, GM Bean from Carolina, and I mean, Butler's the same category, $3 to $5 million. I'm kind of indifferent. I think that in this draft especially, you could find fill-ins to fill in Vernon Butler or go on the free agent market and find yourself a stud in the making, which has been the rumor that the Bills are looking for studs to bring into their team. Manny Sanders, man, I really like Manny, but I mean, age is creeping up. He kind of fell off as the year went on. I think it was more system and scheme based, not because his talent isn't there. He's likely going to require $4 to $6 million to rejoin the Bills if he doesn't go to a wide receiver hungry team, which could inflate that number, but I'd really be shocked if he returns to the Bills. Mitchell Trubisky, Mitchie Biscuits is no more because he's full of biscuits, man. $2.5 to $5 million. He is likely to land somewhere. If not, I would love to see Mitchell Trubisky come back to the Bills and back up Josh Allen because they developed a nice friendship and chemistry when it came to learning the systems and schemes from the opposing teams. So Trubisky, to me, I think would be a great get to get him back. Ike Botiger, man, 27, $3 million to $5 million in offensive line help is definitely needed. I would not be surprised if they entertain bringing him back. He is coming off that injury, if I'm not mistaken, so we'll see if that's going to happen. Levi Wallace, 26 years old, and I mean, defensive backs, they just covet crazy money right now. $8 million to $9.5 million for Wallace is a little high for me. I think you can go somewhere else and get a better player overall. Even if you're going to pay a little bit more, I just think Wallace, it's just too rich for my blood simply because of what he gives you on this offense. Isaiah McKenzie, he is definitely one that I would look at retaining. 26 years old, $1 million to $1.5 million is a nice cap hit you can get for a very, Swiss Army knife type of player in this offense that you could utilize in the run, the short pass, the slot. Maybe he becomes your new slot presence, but I like his game a lot, man. Harrison Phillips, he's been making a lot of steam as well in the on the offseason market right now. 26 years old, $4.5 to $5.5 million. The Bills, they predicate this defense upon having a lot of depth on that defensive line, and he is part of that. Same with Justin Zimmer. He is a special teams guy and a defensive rotational piece. 29 years old, $800K. So, you got a lot of guys here. That's a young D-line on this roster where age could potentially be leaving out the door, and I mean, I wouldn't hate to get another veteran, and I got it on the next slide. If we talk about this, man, it's Ndamukong Suh. I would love to get this guy on this team. I don't have it here, but I mean, it is one of these guys brings a different level of attitude and skill to this team, leadership capabilities, because he has been to the Super Bowl before. But I mean, players to cut right now or trade, man. We got Cole Beasley. His name has been floated around, especially at the Combine, where they did say they would allow him to, go and seek a trade from another team. It's going to be a little tough based on his salary and his age, but I mean, $6.1 million, 1.5 to dead if he is cut or traded. Star Lotulelei, and I mean, he's one of these guys that's interesting. I wouldn't mind cutting him at this point. I mean, his salary, 6.6 with only 2.6 going to dead. I mean, but, if you don't bring in talent to replace this, then this is a bad deal to release him. You need to bring in more talent. Even though Ed Oliver's still there, I mean, I think you could upgrade from star. Like I said, go get a Ndamukong Suh. Now he can clog up that front and allow your edge rushers like Gregory Rousseau and company and Basham and company to start getting after the quarterback that much more. So for me, if this is done correctly and you go get a guy like Suh, I would definitely entertain dropping Star Lotulelei. They already got rid of A.J. Klein. He was on my list, so I scratch him out because he was there. $5.1 million in savings was had. Darrell Williams, another right tackle for the Bills, $8.1 million, 1.8 to dead. I could see this being a restructure rather than a release, especially since they just got rid of Feliciano, the offensive lineman as well, so I could really see the restructure happening there. When it comes to the Bills' money tied up, it is Stephon Diggs, Trey White, Josh Allen, Tremon Edmonds. He's making noise too that there is a potential trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers warming up, so definitely keep your eyes on that. Deion Dawkins, he takes a boatload of money as well, so Diggs with almost 18 mil, Trey White with 16.4. Josh Allen is actually a very nice cap hit, even though he did sign that mammoth deal of over $250 million. This year, the Bills only have to pay him 16.5 on the cap, but that massive 93.1 in dead, and that cap hit is going to increase as the years go on. I mean, if Brandon Beane, he is one of the most intelligent GMs, in my opinion, not just because he's on the Bills. If he was somewhere else doing this, I would echo that same thought. And I mean, he could easily save around $17 to $30 million before we enter the new league year when it comes next week in the middle of March. So I mean, Edmonds, Dawkins, Morris, Poyer, Hyde, Williams, 10 to 15 million, in restructured deals could be found in that department as he starts, trimming off certain players off this roster as well. So there will be, available capital to go and find key token free agents on the open market, which we haven't seen in Buffalo for a very long time. The news reports also coming out suggesting that, star end talent is calling Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills, saying that they want to join Buffalo this season to hopefully go for that Super Bowl run. You don't see that very often in Buffalo, I'll tell you that much. We had to pay Mario Williams, $125 million back in the day to come to Buffalo, so I love it all day long. When we're talking about the NFL draft, here we go. The Bills got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, and 7. So they do got a lot of draft capital. 2 picks, one from the Carolina, one from Atlanta. They do have a lot of ability to maneuver around this draft board with all this capital. Pick 27. We'll just dive into this draft because, I got DT, DB, LB, RB, and O-line as the team needs right now to round everything out. Right now at pick 20. It's not pick 27, excuse me. That's a typo. It's pick 25. And I mean, for me, if a defensive back falls to you here in the name of, Sauce Gardner's not going to happen anymore. He's just getting his name pumped up the draft. But if it's an Andrew Booth, if it's a McCreary, that is a slam dunk pick for the Buffalo Bills. We desperately require another top-end defensive back to, play beside Trey White. Trey's coming off that ACL injury, so he'll likely be back around the November point, I want to say, next season. So you desperately require another top-end defensive back unless they go hit that on the open market, but that's going to cost them as well. Linebacker is a massive need on this team. Everyone's gushing about, Matt Milano. Yes, he's an edge rushing guy, and I think that's where he would be best at. Tremaine Edmonds is still young. I'm still willing to hold out hope unless they go and trade his services to Pittsburgh, like I said, or another team. But I mean, linebacker, if you could, like Nakobe Dean to the Bills would be like my ultimate. You would see me wet my pants on draft day if that happened. Edge presence, obviously, get more depth on that defensive line. I don't hate it. So right there is kind of where I would go. I've seen, a couple wide receivers like Jameson Williams being, pegged here for the Bills. I don't hate that either because even though he's coming off that ACL, you're also looking to the future of saying, teaming up a guy like Stephon Diggs with Jameson Williams and Gabe Davis, good no Lord, that would be unreal. But I mean, round 2, pick 27, go linebacker, O-line for me if I'm the Bills. You got to continue to round out all these pieces. They scored huge with Spencer Brown on that right tackle last year. I think if you hit that here, linebacker especially, there's a Chanel guy, or he's pretty good, man, at linebacker from Wisconsin. I would not hate that whatsoever. Number 4, this is where I go running back if I'm the Buffalo Bills. We've also heard Saquon Barkley being, pegged to the Bills potentially because of the connection with Brian Dable and the general manager now there from Buffalo. But I mean, if that doesn't come to fruition, I want to say the Bills go here in the 4th round and go and get yourself a running back. Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall likely gone by this time. Kenneth Walker probably gone as well. But there are other options here that I do covet and that I do like. And the Bills, Rashard White example, Zamir White from UGA. I would absolutely love him there. James Cook, for example, I would absolutely love him here in Bills gear. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm going. Like I said, Ndamukong Suh in free agency, this would be great. You remove DT off the team needs once you get a guy like Ndamukong Suh, and it gives your defense that much more. So now you can play a little bit more in the NFL draft, and that's exactly where I'd go if I was Brandon Beane. But when it comes to top players under contract, the Buffalo Bills are basically still, put together the way they were last season. Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, and okay, you remove Cole Beasley from here, you remove Devin Singletary potentially from here, and I mean, you're going to add a couple other pieces, but the defensive front is kind of where I'm saying you got to redo it. Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau, the young blood, man, they are the top guys on this team. Rousseau definitely impressed me last year and came into his own. Tremaine Edmonds is a young guy. Yes, he does struggle with gap awareness at times, and he does get caught up in tackles and blocks, but I mean, I don't like it. If they're just going to give away his services because they feel they're going to have to pay him, he's going to be our unrestricted free agent coming next year, I believe. So, I mean, if that's why they're trading him just to get the money off the books, I mean, that could be a potential fail because he is still very youthful. 24 years old, 4 years in the league. I mean, come on, man. He's still young, and he could definitely round out his game. Trey White, like I said, on the injury. Poyer and Hyde, your top dogs on defense. Notable free agents, or notable players, excuse me. You got AJ Epinesa. He took his game to another level. Basham, the defensive end, like I said, Johnson and Jackson, both your DBs, they're very serviceable in that nickel space, like I said, but we do not have Buffalo Bills. This club does not have a top number 2 corner, and they desperately require one, as we saw last year, where guys like, Tyreek Hill were able to just cook you all over the field. We need a speed guy, a speed defensive back that can definitely play. That's kind of where I'm looking at for these Buffalo Bills this season. So there you have it. That is the Buffalo Bills 2022 offseason workbook. As we get closer to free agency and the new league year opening up, it's going to be interesting to see how my Buffalo Bills Bills will operate and move forward and try to strengthen their team, because the AFC is just a monster in itself. So many quarterbacks, so many competitive teams, especially now with Russell Wilson going to the AFC West. Good Lord, it's going to be a lot of competition. But if the Bills do this build right, man, it's Super Bowl or bust now. You know this, especially with Josh Allen. It's time to round out and go to the free agent market and get those top free agents to put them over the top versus teams like Kansas City and company. But, I mean, it's going to be exciting nevertheless. So, as always, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time. I am out.